Hello, hello. Welcome to tonight's virtual author story time. I'm so excited. Thank you for everyone who is joining us live. Thank you for those who are joining either through Facebook or YouTube. And then also, because this is live stream, you can also be able to view it later as well. And so I'm excited because tonight is kicking off our series of author story times that we'll be hosting once a month, introducing you to authors that you should have in your home libraries, an opportunity for you to learn more about them, and then a way for you to pose questions to the author as they discuss more about their book. And so for our first author story time in our series, we have the one and only Chante Thomas, who will be sharing with us, as you see in the background, which I love. I just noticed all of her books standing so you can be able to learn more about what inspired her writing. And then we will have a time where she's going to do a live reading of one of her books. And then we'll close out with what are some things to expect in the future. So I love to always start off with the author being able to share a little background about themselves. So anything you would like to just open up to our audience before we get started?
Oh gosh. First of all, thank you so much. I didn't realize I was kicking off story time. That is so exciting.
Yeah.
I'm starting to really feel like my being an author is more and more of this not quite full time, but certainly it's something that I've really spent a lot of time with. But I'm also an educator and I've been a teacher for 28 years.
Mm,
Teach fifth grade, and I absolutely love it. And a lot of my stories that I write are inspired by family, students, people that I meet, stories I think that they might be telling or would want to tell. And so, sometimes people go like, "Now, is this about me?" And if you think so, then it is.
look, maybe.
Right.
Well, I love it. So in your 28 years, I did not know it's been 28 years. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I already know that there's a bunch of stories in being in education and just meeting people and parents and communities. And so have you always taught fifth grade? What are like all the span of grades you've taught?
Right. So I happen to work in the 5-6 building. So for about 13 years, maybe a little less, 11 years, I think, I taught sixth grade.
Okay.
And then I came down to fifth grade and I have just landed there and I've been there ever since. And, I laugh, I say I've paid the mortgage on my classroom. So I hope I get to stay there and just, be in that space. And I really love it. I don't really look at kids and spy on them and think that there's a story waiting, but I do love being able to expose families and kids to stories with people that look like us. And so that's really what I try to do. And, my school district is really pretty diverse. And so, we have all kinds of nationalities. And it's just, an opportunity to just, celebrate that diversity. I really believe that we all need diverse bookshelves, that Black people need white people need Black books, and so on. We all need everyone's stories.
I love it. So this leads me to my first question, which is with your background in education, with you, just to what you just spoke to, having understanding the need for diversity in books. I think it's one thing to teach books, teach literature to students, but it's another one to be an author yourself, right? And so for you, kind of discuss your writing process. Like, how did you figure out, okay, I'm hearing these stories, I see these stories, but this is how I'm going to write my own story? Like, what was your thing, or what has been your process with writing your books?
Okay, so I want you to know that my first couple of books, I'm just going to show you
Okay.
where I'm from, is the first book that I wrote. And I wrote this before I was a teacher.
Okay.
And it stayed in a file for 24 years, right? So
Mhm.
I tried to get a publishing deal. And at that time, people really didn't want to see, kids that look like this, right? There were a few authors that were, maybe the go to, but that was really it. So it was difficult, number one, to be this young Black girl trying to tell these stories and get a book deal. And I thought that that was really the only way to do it. Life is so different now, so progressive, so many opportunities, globally, the world is at our feet. But my process for all of my books, Go to School, Tommy, um, and also Sean and the Book Yours, and my last one, which is The Great Sacrifice.
Mm,
Can You Spare a Kidney? They all were written here. A
mm,
traditional author is going to tell you that they start with an outline and that they figure out what they want to say and they do their chapters and they develop their characters. But for me, the stories come from within. They come in my sleep, they come from God. And
mm.
then I have to dream it over and over again until I know where I want to go with that story. So I'm not unique because I listened to another author recently talk and they were similar in that they don't use outline.
Gotcha.
But certainly that's a logical thing to do. You want to kind
Right.
of know where you want your story to go. But I really do. They all kind of just start here. And I just have to see what I want to do with those characters. With all of these, the illustrators were really very instrumental
Mm,
in helping to create the character. I may have told them, kind of like this one, I wanted to have like a blonde tip. I wanted this kid to look cool but fun. So, I gave them my thoughts,
mm.
but the illustrator really were instrumental in bringing my words to life. I mean, they just have such an amazing gift. So, finding a good illustrator has been something that I also used early on as like my delay. I don't
Mm.
have an illustrator yet, so I can't publish this book. But the floodgates have opened. Like I understand better how to go about finding illustrators. I understand more about what I want from a book, and so it's becoming a little bit more seamless process now.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
starts
I
here.
was gonna say,
Please.
even though you're saying you don't have a process, you actually sound like you do have a process that it may not be as you say like the traditional one. However, I'm sure going through a series of different books, there are some like go-to practices, right, that you have kind of adapted to and that you adhere to, and just even you sharing about the illustrator, like that was one of my next questions because as I talk to authors, from various backgrounds, the two things I always wonder is how do you decide on your titles and how do you decide on your illustrations? Because as you just stated, that's really the visual. Like for me, I'm a visual learner. So I can read and in my mind I'm already thinking about, oh, this is what this character probably thinks or looks like, or, oh, the way that the author said this, I can imagine it. But it's, the illustrations really, especially I feel like in children's books, lead the stories, right? And so how were you able to really narrow down like who would be your illustrators? And then my second part is the titles, because the title is like the introduction to the story, right? So how do you land on,
Oh my God.
okay, now I got these beautiful pictures, I got this story, this is what I want to name the book. So if you wanted to speak to those two
I
things.
can. I mean, those are really, really good questions. And because I'm a teacher at heart, I'm gonna tell you everything,
Yeah,
right?
please. And this is the reason for this, because we have people watching who are, yes, parents with their kids. We also have people who are like, look, I want to become an author, so I'm learning as well. So all the little tidbits you can give.
And I want to tell you this, and I believe this beyond a shadow of a doubt. There is room for everyone's stories, right? So
Mm,
people help me, and I want to help. Like I don't need to be the keeper of anything that benefited from me. So let me look at where I'm from. So since this was my first book, again, I will tell you, for the longest, I held on to this. Is that okay if you like that? I
yeah,
held on to
sure.
this manuscript, and you know, it was like I have this book. I want to publish this book. I need an illustrator. Do you know an illustrator? It kind of went like that. But eventually, a really dear friend said my sister is an illustrator. And I'm like,
Mm,
now, that didn't fall into my lap like that. What do you mean your sister is an illustrator? And so her sister is Jennifer Price Davis. And so Jennifer and I met and, we just talked a little bit about, like the story. And I shared with her that a favorite, um, I love these vibrant watercolor pictures, right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
so that was something that I shared with her. Like I know that she paints, so she's a painter by trade. And so I wanted that. Like I wanted Floyd Cooper is like $35,000, right? So
I
I
love
get
that.
but I love Floyd Cooper. So I was like, well, can we channel the softness of the watercolors of what Floyd Cooper does. And so, we tried to merge my story with what I had thoughts for. And it took us a year. Like she would paint something, sketch it, play around with it. We would talk about um, if it was going where I wanted it to go or not. Coming up with the story, I had a couple of different titles, but then eventually I just said, let me keep it simple. If you just want to talk about where you're from, this is the book, and it's a good template for that. So this one was probably the Jennifer was my guide into publishing. She did everything for me. Once I wrote the words, she uploaded this. She just did a lot, and I'm so grateful for her. Um, I like to keep simple titles. And so the one I'm going to read tonight later is Go to School, Tommy. What's it about? He don't want to go to school. Tommy is looking serious. He's like, it's the first day of school. I'm nervous. I hate it. And so we wanted to try to create this story of this kid with his mom and this conversation. Because as a teacher, I know how it feels on the first day of school for teachers, for kids. And what do? You smile. And it makes a huge difference. So again, we stayed in the same format, the painting. I kept the title simple. But then, I want to grow, I want to experiment, I want to do things differently. And so with my next book, I really had a lot of angst over this one. Eventually, I landed on Sean and the Book Cures. I wanted to introduce a new character and I wanted to have a series, right? And so I thought that like my goal was he would research something different in every series. Like he would discover something new in every series. So that was the reason for Book Cures. It made sense to me. Other people go like, how'd you get that title again? Like, what does that mean? So it was my title. I think, hindsight might say, I need a title that really says what it's about, right? Researching Sean or figure it out, Sean, or answer the question, Sean, But that was like me being still kind of a novice in that, right? And thinking that I come up with the title and the people are going to come. I think, if there's work involved in the title. But the illustrations are really fun. And I went on Instagram and I joined a site called the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators.
Yeah.
And there's a huge house of illustrators there and writers who are so generous. And I would share my manuscript and they would go, I don't think I can do that, but try this person. So like they kept trying to get me to somebody. And you know what? Some people would read the manuscript and go, I don't think I can do that. But so like, it's an interview both ways. Like they're interviewing you, you're interviewing them. It's not as simple as let me go hire this illustrator. So I eventually found the very talented, young, youthful Danielle Tate, who gave me this youthful story that I wanted. And it's really fun. It was, I wrote it during the pandemic. And so it was kind of like about, what happened to the kids after the pandemic came, how they had to stay home. And so we tried to make it light, but
Yeah.
I love families and I want to show, kids reading and just living life with their families. I mean, he loves books and, that's my mission because if we don't read, without reading, we're nothing. I mean, you read to learn how to put things together. You read to get inspiration. You read to so every last book is like we got to be able to learn something, or at least be inspired. So this kid, I wanted to show this cool boy who read, but he has friends, and he's got family that loves him, and he's just living a good life, and had to kind of make some adjustments like we all did during the pandemic. So that was Sean and the Book Yours. Okay, so hold on. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
This one?
A totally different approach, I see.
Yes. So it is a fictional account of a nonfiction event, right? So my dear friend recently had her second kidney transplant in 20 years. And I said to her when she was in the hospital, I said, oh my God, you're a walking miracle. Someone's got to tell your story. She said, you're the only author I know. You got to tell the story. I said, I can't tell your story. Don't put that on me. And she said, I want you to tell it and I want you to use Sean. So, already we were right there, like with I had to use Sean the Book Yours. My son, when I told him her kidney transplant, her second one came from her husband.
Mm.
My son said, "Why he do that? That's a huge sacrifice." Okay, she loved it. The Great Sacrifice.
Mm.
So like this title is long because we had a lot going on. But I will tell you, I added "Can You Spare a Kidney?" because this book is so special. And I need people to be able to find it. Like my other books, people are going to find them because I'm going to tell them to go look for them. I want a family, a child who is curious. I want someone who wants to learn about the kidney, who wants to learn about what happens when you get sick. I want them to find this book. So I researched some titles that were out there to see how many had kidney in them. And that's why I knew at the end I had to add that.
Mm.
So I will tell you, the me now 4 books in, I would probably research titles and make sure that I'm landing somewhere where people could find my book and have a title that tells my story, right? So, you just can't like create the story that you want to create.
Yeah.
Think about marketing too. And
Yeah.
this book, I want people to find it. And so that's why I um, kind of had to re-release it with this additional title because I want people to find it. And I knew that they weren't going to find it just as Sean the Book Yours without me doing like a Herculean marketing effort. But now I think they'll find it. And it's
Yeah.
a sweet, sweet story. So,
I love it. And I want to just kind of like go back on some of the things you said because I want to make sure that if people missed it, that we mention it. The first thing, I love how you're saying your search started where a space where collectives, a collective of folks who are all centered around children's lit. Like you said, you were. Can you name the organization again?
yes. So this organization is around the country, and then you belong to the regional one. So I belong to the Midwestern region of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI. Just
Yeah.
remember that.
And
Yep.
the reason I bring that up because recently I had the chance to just like interview and talk to a bunch of different authors who are traditionally published and self-published, like both, and all of them said the same thing. Like what helps them is like being in a community of writers, right? Like being in a community with individuals who are doing the same work, whether it's going to continue to go to workshops, whether it's just being able to have another eye on your work, but also to your point, as you're first starting, it's just helpful to know that there's work already being done that you just need to get plugged into. And a
Right.
lot of times when you are just starting, you may not know where to start. And so join a society or joining a collective will be a great community to get you started and be able to know that I know that some of the struggles that may come along with being an author, you're able to know that I'm not alone in it, right? Like,
Yeah.
people are having difficult time trying to figure out their illustrator. I'm not the only one, or trying to figure out, especially if people want to go the self-published route, just like what are the best avenues to make sure that their story is heard. And then to your point, the titles, like just being able to be like in a community to talk about what that looks like, or doing your own research of like, hey, I want to write this particular book. Let me see what else is already out there, so that I can make sure that where will my book land in the catalog.
Right. It's all of that. It is a huge effort. Um, I am, again, at this stage, I feel really lucky because I feel like I have some connections and people are starting to, know who I am a little bit.
Hmm.
But it's a huge effort, even from checking your email. Like in the beginning, I had an email account and, like I didn't check it all the time because I didn't know people were looking for me. And then I would go and be like, oh my gosh, I missed an email. It was time sensitive. So, like you gotta have your things separate, but really, give it a respectable amount of time because you just never know what's gonna come your way. But I will tell you again, I mean, people have been so supportive when I ask for help or questions. I haven't really come across anyone who has said, "Girl, pay your dues." Like, they don't do that
Mm.
because we all believe so much in the importance of books and
Yeah,
words and getting them out there. Yeah.
I love it. Well, this is a perfect segue to our live reading. So we've talked about her books. We talked about just the background, just how do we get to this point of the title and the illustration. And so I asked Chante if she would be willing to do a live reading because as we're promoting, as you see at the bottom, we have an author circle where here at Versatile Books, we really are big about like promoting and putting amazing authors in front of families and school leaders and organizations. And so, as you already heard the backstory of the books, I also know that it's also a treat to actually hear an author read their own words. And so, we're going to have her do a live reading. I'm going to sit back and relax and enjoy with you all as well. And then we'll come back with a few more questions before we wrap up. So, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Miss Thomas as she goes ahead and starts her live reading.
Okay. All right, everyone. So this book is the second book that I published. And I'm sorry, there's like this glare. I'm trying to get this together for you. And it's called Go to School, Tommy. And, this is, I'm a teacher. So, I think I've just thought about some family members and just some people that I know that sometimes are struggling with this idea. I heard Mama yell, "Wake up. It's the first day of school." "Please, Mama, don't make me go. You know I always break the rules. My teachers hate me, and the kids are mean." The principal never smiles. I really hate this scene. Look at his perception of the principal's office with the beware. Only frowns allowed. I think that's in his head. "Tommy, this year will be different. You know I've got your back. I promised that I would help you stay focused and on track." I got out of bed reluctantly, but I began to smile inside. I saw my clothes waiting patiently. From this day, I could no longer hide. So I bathed, brushed my teeth, and combed my hair. All really important things to do in the morning. Then I looked in the mirror with shock. Staring at me was a funny face that Mom made out of a sock. To Tommy. A note was attached and addressed to me. I reached for it gently with care. "Dear Tommy, there is nothing that we can't share. It's the first day of school and you're nervous. And in fact, I am too. So I made this sock for you to carry every day to remind you that Mom's love is with you. Do you know why this sock is smiling? This is my message to you. If an old sock can smile every day, then certainly you can too." I could hear Mama saying, "Watch what happens today. When you smile, I'll bet you make a friend. Smiles always make me feel better, and they're so easy to send." Hmm. Then I heard Mama yell, "Wake up, Tommy. It's the first day of school." He's over here thinking, what? Was this a dream? Let the world know I love you by smiling every day. It won't take them long to think I'm glad Tommy's here today. Suddenly I was happy. I dressed and rushed to school. I saw my principal and teacher waiting for me, and the other kids too. They looked at me and smiled, and I smiled too. Then I reached into my pocket and what? Was it really a dream? He's got that sock in his pocket. We don't know what has happened. What is going on? The end. Go to school, Tommy.
I love it. I love it. I would tell you, it reminds me of a book. It reminds me of a book called The New Kid. I don't know if you ever heard
Oh,
this one.
yes, of course, Jerry Craft.
Yeah,
Yes.
the reason I say that is because I love stories that really like give the real of how kids may feel about school, right?
Yes.
And it allows to tell a story from that perspective. My son, he loves that book, and especially for him because when he entered middle school, he was the new kid. So just the
Right.
whole idea of like this is really how I feel when I walk into a school, and so even to your point, the first day being a mom, that is the experience on the first day. Like summer's
Yes.
over. I don't want to go there anyway. But then once you actually go, understanding like the community around that and just the relationship of the parent understanding that as well. So I loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, we do. We got to talk. I have two sons. So, we got to talk them down all the time. I mean, kids say so many different things now, about school, like, oh, I don't want to go, the teacher's hating, and it's like, really, what
Mm-hmm.
is real and what isn't. But I know for me, when I meet a new class or, just sometimes there are things that you have to do. You just take a deep breath and just smile and look at everyone. And I've often found people just smile right back at you. And so we all deal with anxiety in
Yep.
different ways, right? It doesn't have to be I hate school or I don't want to go to school. And I think that character really just was afraid that he wasn't going to do well. It wasn't that he hated school.
Mm,
He just didn't know what to expect. So, uh,
exactly.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. So thank you. So as you all heard, that is Go to School Tommy. So as you heard, she has Go to School Tommy and an array of other books that are all available. At the bottom, I have check out our author circle. So if you go to our website underneath our bookstore, we have a highlighted tab for all the authors that we have been promoting for this series of our author circle. And so they will be the main people I'm doing these virtual story times with, but also being able to just promote them in all the circles that we as an organization are as well. And so, as you already just heard, Go to School Tommy, along with the other book titles, you can visit, which will have her share her direct link, but also another way to get there is through our website as well. November is celebration of so many things in literacy. We just had National Authors Day. There's family literacy. There's so many different holidays that happen in the month of November that's centered around literacy. And so at the end, towards the end of each story time, I always have a question depending on the time of year in which we're doing this interview. And so since we're talking about literacy this whole month, I wanted to ask you on the spot, so I know I didn't give you time to think about this.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite books and or authors? And I will also share what are some of mine, but I would love for you to go first, or I can go first, however you
I can go. I will tell you, when I was younger, I loved Judy Blume.
Mm-hmm.
She told those coming of age stories. And I mentioned her because, a lot of her books are on the banned book list now, which is, it's important to understand that people feel like it's okay to say, you don't have choice in certain books, for whatever reason. They're too real, they give too much information. And I think that is just something that we should anyone who cares about literacy should be concerned about. So I love Judy Blume. I have introduced Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, to some of my students. I'm like, look, this is what I used to like when I was your age. And, they're kind of like, what? So I love her. My adult favorites, I love Kimberly Lawson Roby. I love a good, juicy, just fiction tale with bad people
Yeah.
misbehaving, or good people misbehaving.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's, now I'm trying to listen to books on tape. It's so hard to just sit, so I listen on Audible.
So
When I
that's something I need to get into because I mean, Chante, if you see, like, I'm one of those people. If someone says a good title, I'm like, oh, let me buy that. So I have like books on my nightstand, books behind me that I have not even opened, but I just love the way books feel, and so
Yes,
that has been a hard transition. I have friends who are like, I get through so many books because I listen to them. I listen to one book Audible and I see what they mean, but I also was like, I still like the books, you know.
I know. I'm with you. I mean, I have, I buy everyone's books, and a lot of times I go out, and just on the road, and I still want to support, right? So then I bring the books home to my kids. Their bookcases are overflowing with books because, you really what you really hope, I think, is that your book can turn a non-reader into a reader.
Yep.
And so that's why I think we keep exposing. When you mention the new kid, it's near and dear to my heart because my son hates to read. And it's so funny because my son's name is Sean. And so this book is about this kid whose superpower is reading, right? Well, that's not Sean. But I eventually turned him on to the new kid, and he loved it.
Yeah.
He thought it was him, right? So that's what a book it reaches out to everyone, and I want to have like that coming of age story. Like that would be my goal, so my books are getting longer and longer, and I hope I can, delve into that space. But yeah, New Kid is a special book. I love, love, love it.
Yeah, and I would say similar to you, growing up, I loved books like you said that depict everyday life, right? I love series, so I remember reading like the Babysitter Club and
Okay.
all those different like series, and those were my introduction to reading. So that's why even now when I talk to parents and they're like, "Oh, all they want to read is Diary of the Wimpy Kid," or all these little like series books, and I get it, right? But I also am like, okay, well, that's just them getting in the habit of understanding that books have continuations, right? And so what ends up happening is that you lead them to another series, right? Or another type of book. And hopefully that could be like the draw in. And I think as I've gotten older, I definitely am it just kind of depends on where I am in life. Like I love Black literature, so of course like Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, things of that nature. But I think that I really drew to them in college because growing up, that really weren't books that I had around me all the
They
time.
weren't given to us in
They
school.
weren't given, And so once I was exposed, so I'm like, oh, I need more, right? So now that has been a huge love of mine. And then I'm so grateful as you spoke to when you first started your book. Like growing up, even, when I was younger, there was not a lot of books that were for Black and brown children. And now there's so many. So
Right.
this idea of that love for these writers can start earlier, and that is what really excites me. And so I think that to your point, the banned book list, that's a whole nother podcast, a whole other conversation. But I think ultimately, we have to, as much as possible, allow kids to know that, as one of my favorite quotes from Toni Morrison is that, if the more they are able to read books, they're inspired to be authors themselves because maybe they don't see books that look like them. It's like, well, then that means I need to write the book. But they never know unless they are exposed to all these different literature, or that there is a book that you love. You could say you don't like reading, you just haven't found the right book yet, right?
That's
So both sides are true, but I think that it comes with being exposed to as many different authors that there are possible for our kids to read.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
I love
So
that you are doing, everything that you do to give us opportunities and just to, put these books in the hands of your amazing crew. So thank
yay. So I always love to do like the closing thoughts. So what is new? What do people can look out for?
you.
Of course, Ian was telling us where we can get your work. But yeah, what's new? What's going on?
So, short story is when I first went out and sold books, and it was during the holiday, and I had my table together, and it was just books, right? And I'm looking around, and everybody's got Christmas trees and holiday bulbs and lights, and like they had these amazing tables, and I was like, oh my gosh, no one's gonna come over to my table. I don't know how to display this. So the next time I did that same event, I went and found some dolls, and I was like, the dolls are going to bring people to my table. I'm not selling them, but they're just to bring people to look at my characters. And everyone wanted to buy a doll. And I said, I'm going to sell dolls one day. So this holiday, I'm going to have some gift sets with some dolls that are going to be packaged with my book because I have landed a vendor to help me do that. So that's one thing. So I'm just changing my merchandising opportunity just a little bit. But then the other thing, look at her. She's so cute, right? So this is my other little side project. It's a coloring book, and I'm changing the world. And so it's just 20 pictures of different people that we know. This one is I Am Strong. And it's a quote from Misty Copeland. Be strong, be fearless, be beautiful and brave, and believe that anything is possible when you have the right people there to support you. So that's this book. You know, I just want to inspire. I do have more stories, but this was just something I wanted to do that was different. So I've been working on this summer. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Dowels and coloring books. That is awesome. That is so awesome. So all of these are available if they go to your website, correct?
Yes, on my website. Just stay tuned, but please, there's a way for you to email me, and you can just say, "Hey, I don't see such," and then I can get it to you. So I have a webmaster. I'm keeping really busy, and he's trying to update things as I bring him more stuff. So, but my website is ChanteThomasBooks.com. And again, there's a way to write to me. There's a way to purchase things. But if anything doesn't feel easy, just write me, and I can take care of it, and I can get whatever you need to you.
Awesome.
Chante Thomas Books.
Chante Thomas Books. Remember that, you all. Chante Thomas Books. And so I want to just be able to say a few things. I'm just so grateful that we were connected. And I know it's now like a few years now, which I'm so grateful that we stayed connected. I look forward to having you come up here to Chicago. I don't know if you already know, but on July 29th is when we'll be doing our second literary festival here in Chicago. And so I will definitely be making sure you're aware on all the different authors that we feature. But I would love to have you come out and be able to visit us up here in Chicago. But ultimately, I just want to say I'm grateful to know you. I'm grateful for your work. I believe that you sharing your background and you just giving these tidbits allows people to know it's possible for them to do the same. And so if you're watching this and you are an aspiring author, a parent, an educator, someone who is just like, man, you know, I have a story that I would love to tell. Even you saying it's your first story you had 24 years ago and you still went out there and published it, right? I think it just allows us to know that perseverance really, really matters. And so I just want to say thank you for sharing your background and your stories tonight, your live reading. And for those who are watching, go and support her. Go and support her work. If you know someone who maybe had a kidney transplant or anything that's dealing with, you know, just everyday conversations with kids, like support. And you will not, this is not the end of you seeing Chante, because we will be continuing to promote her through Burst Into Books. But I just wanted to just say thank you for being an amazing kickoff to our author Storytime series.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you again. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, so thank you all for who watched live. I saw the comments. I've seen people coming through. If you're watching this later, do know that you can still comment and we can always come back and answer any questions you may have. But share this live stream so that more and more people can be able to be aware of amazing authors that you should add to your home library. Until next month, take care and have a great rest of your evening. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.